Buddy.
Discounting your prices, the ultimate way to lose. To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly. We're actually gonna have to get you a little DJ beside the DD there to make that
Listen,
match
I,
because I just
I like the DD, Dan D, and DJ and Dan. Same thing. Same thing.
oh
It's
yeah, okay, we're still the double D's. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
it's all
double
good.
double D's. Maybe we could start the name off of something like that. That'll draw more
Yeah,
attention, right? Double
we'll
D's.
I don't know. It might not be the best kind of attention, but so
Oh, what's up,
hey,
man? How was your weekend?
it was great, brother. It was great. It was great, man. How was yours?
It was good. Good. Trying to
Good.
trying to
That
get
sounded
back.
very enthusiastic. Like that sounded like
Um,
you were
oh
just dying to share
man.
what you did this
Well,
weekend with
obviously I am
everybody.
wearing a Browns hat, and they lost, so that was not
Yeah.
fun.
Okay. So that was a weekend. Yeah. There we go. So listen, let's dive into it because I think
Yeah.
um today's topic is I really think it's one that is going to hit home with a lot of people. I think it might even piss off a lot of people. I know that
Yeah.
when I first realized this, it was a pretty big hit to my ego at that time, and it's negotiation, right? Like I could tell you, and I talk about this quite a bit in my masterclass, but I always say, my sage advice from the philosophers that I first started in business with was, oh well, if you want the freight, just drop your price. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
why not, man?
that,
Hey, let's
I was taught
let's
the
just
same thing. I thought that was the way
yeah,
you do it. Is that
yeah,
not
yeah,
how?
yeah. Yeah, it's like the race to the bottom. It's who can erode their
Yeah.
margins faster wins.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think it was Dan Kennedy that said, you know, in business, if you're not the cheapest, be the most expensive. You know, and
Mm.
so kind of a
So
couple of you think about it, right? Like,
that was good.
uh,
I mean, I like it already.
why compete with Walmart, right? Like, so just Walmart as an example, or even Amazon as an example. Like, the buying power that some companies have is so cheap. It's
Hmm.
not even worth us going. And this goes, gosh, it's amazing how things come full circle, right? I mean, listen, in negotiation, so here's my belief about negotiation, and here's my 30,000 foot view or theory on negotiation. It's a two-way street. I think in every business deal, every person needs to feel like they got a deal, they accomplished something, they got ahead, right?
Yep.
It can't be you know, when they're down, keep kicking them until they tap out and you get the price. Because I mean, you can do it like that, like, especially for us as logistics professionals in today's market. For sure, we can do it because
Oh,
capacity
absolutely.
at a low, like there's all these different and we could say no, this is but once anything turns, we're going to see a big swing, right? And
Mhm.
customers are going to be, typically pissed off. Da, da, da. I mean, we saw this in 2018 to 19, right? The companies that I shouldn't really even say companies because in logistics, it's not companies, it's individuals that work in the umbrella of the company. But, had conversations with so many people and they're like, nah, man, like I'm putting huge margins on everything I do. And then as soon as 2019 hit, and there was so much capacity because, you know, from the asset side, we saw it as here's our opportunity. It's going to be in our favor for the next five. It's always this them or I kind of thing
Yeah.
is the
Always,
mentality I
always.
get. So, don't know why, but and then it was like, okay, well, you screwed me last year, so I'm going to screw you this year when capacity was so high,
Yeah.
and customers were like, no, I wanted it. I
It's
remember speaking.
2018 all over again. Kind of.
Well, it was crazy, and like, so you move from 2018 into 19, then to COVID and all this kind of stuff. But that transition from 18 to 19, now you have to negotiate if you want new clients, right? Ryan says the good old 19 days and carriers offering $1 a mile. But you see,
I
okay,
see
so
carriers doing
Ryan,
loads for
here's
less than a
the
dollar a
problem.
mile. How do you make money doing loads for less than a dollar? I mean, uh, I
But
mean,
you
okay,
see,
so I don't know the cost completely that goes into running a truck, but I know it's pretty damn impossible to running a truck for less than a dollar a mile. But
oh, it's
it,
crazy.
it's
It's
people
crazy.
coming into this
Listen,
industry not knowing what they're doing. That's the problem.
no, I mean, and here's the thing. So I'll address, yeah, well, I'll address that, Ryan, because I'm actually frustrated with you that you put that, but it's not what we talk about. But I hear what you're saying.
No,
He's joking, but
he
so
is
it's
joking.
here's the thing: is I have friends that have an asset companies. They actually parked a third to a half of their fleet, and they made more money.
I
So
believe it.
think of this for a second, right? You park half your fleet, so you have these assets sitting, costing you thousands of dollars a month each, tens of thousands of dollars, and you're making more money because people are just doing it so cheap. So, Ryan, the good
Yeah,
old 2019 days of carriers offering $1 a mile. So I have to address it because you know me, I'm that
yeah,
8 mile. And
You're gonna let
here's
us.
the thing: yes, offering $1 a mile. In Here's what I'm saying to or sorry, 2019 offering $1 a mile. In 2019, if you would have sat down and made relationships with the suppliers and said, like, listen, I understand it's
Mm,
a screwed up economy, it's switching back and forth. What do you need to make things work? Let's do, and give them a decent margin,
mm,
just like, okay, carriers and logistics companies in 2018 that went to customers and said, listen, I want to lock you in. Prices are skyrocketing. I'm going to lock you in at a certain level. That's negotiation. That's baseline. That's where our industry as a whole suffers from, right? I like the lobster, eating lobster and steak and lobster in those days, but
that-
that's what our industry suffers from. Is it's to me, anyways. I feel 100%. It's always this, like it's either them or I, and I think, you know, as a person who entered this industry as a broker, fully responsible for that, like fully responsible. And then there's the asset side that's responsible because they'll actually move the freight because they got to get the drivers home,
yeah,
right? Like or to their location to pick up other freight. But it's consistently creating that friction between the two, right? Is the way I see it. And by all means, if you're listening and you say I'm wrong, call me out on it. But I just like when I went from a brokerage company to an asset company, um, I heard the words that were used about brokers. Like even to the point where some people in the company would say, "Well, they're not customers; they're brokers." I'm like, hold on, time out," because I was a broker, so I took offense to it wholeheartedly. I was like, whoa, time out. What do you mean they're not? Do they write a check to pay the? Yes, they do.
yeah,
Okay, so they're a customer. Well, no, that I need $1,200 and they want it for 1,100. I said, then don't take the load. Like, but
mhm,
we need the load. I said, so then let's activate our sales force to go and get us freight to get the $1,200. Like, they just because they're a broker, or just and the same thing on the brokers. I mean, on the broker side, I can't tell you how many people at the when I first started this interview was like, oh, no, man, like I book a truck. And then I continue to try and book it, and if I find somebody $100 cheaper, I cancel me. Like we
you're
we kick ourselves in the nuts, right? Like, is what it is, I think, anyways. But
well, but
I mean,
that again, that just goes right back to the poor training and the poor perception of how to really do this industry from the big brokerage houses. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, the first one that I started with, they had a list, an internal list that. This list was not created by the company. This list was created by the brokers entering the information for new people that they were going to go after, but then it just keeps getting recycled over and over again. So now it's not broker A who signed it up 10 years ago originally, it's brokers Z who is now trying to work with this company for the third time, but because and it's just this recycle
yeah,
idea
one
of
hundred percent,
burn
one
through
hundred percent.
people and fuck people over until you get back to them again, and they got screwed over enough by other people. They're going to give us another chance because we're the big
Hmm.
guys. That's
Hmm.
uh,
I'm thinking about what Ryan put there. So my question is, did as a broker, and for all you brokers out there, shoot us a note in the comment. I'd love to hear this. Did you actually make more money in 2019 than you did in 2018 than you did in 2020? And part of me says the answer is no, because if you were getting $1 a mile, it means customers were being called saying, I'll do it at 90 cents a mile. Right. So I think that variation is a little bit different. I think in
you're
today's market, if I could be so bold, that customers, from all the customers that I speak to and kind of all the research I do consistently, um, customers now, I think over the last, like, because if we look at the last 30, and this is, sorry, everybody, I know we're kind of staying off topic when it comes to the, negotiation and what we were talking about. There's a big training today, but I think the context will give you some really good key insights. So,
oh
you
yeah,
look at the last 36 months of our industry. The last 36 months have probably been the biggest roller coaster in
insane.
in my in my in my 28 years in the industry, 27 years in the industry. um I think it's been the biggest roller coaster ever. And I think it's actually shifted the mentality of, logistics managers, traffic managers, shippers, the ones that were all about, hey, you know what, I'm going to go to market and I'm going to always get the cheapest price, I think are shifting their mentality. And, like, if we look at negotiation as a core function, I mean, negotiation should be something that's practiced every day in sales. It should be taught at every company. It should be readdressed every 6 months because negotiations change. I mean, you look at our industry, how the
Absolutely.
negotiations change so much in our industry every, like, 6 to 9 months, especially now. I mean, we're all kind of, I
It's
think we're all adopting to the new purchasing patterns and all that kind of stuff as well.
yeah,
But
yeah,
negotiations as a whole. So a when it comes to negotiations, I think it's got to be a two-way street. I think anyone that walks out of a negotiation feeling like they've been taken advantage of is going to be scorned the next time. So we as sales reps need to understand that and prepare that our prospects or our customers at this point, depending on where you are in your sales cycle, have probably been scorned before, right?
mhm,
Um, I also fully think that, as much as we consistently say, like, don't drop your price. Like, to me, what I charge, like, I have students come to me all the time. They're like, course is pretty expensive. I go, but what you get is a million times more. And they're like, okay, I can't afford it now, but I can afford X, Y, and Z. And I said one thing. I said when I lost my company, one thing I always said is I will not let money get in the way of somebody that really wants an education that's going to do something about it.
mhm.
So I've given, I can't even count how many students payment plans, where normally I don't do payment plans, but it's like, okay, I'll do it. And yeah, I'm taking a risk because they get full access and they could just, disappear in 30 days, never pay and everything. But
Yeah,
it's a risk I'm willing to take to help somebody. And I know we can't necessarily say to a customer, okay, I know they want 1,000 and I want 1,500, but we'll do a payment plan. Like, we can't. But the reality is, in our industry, there's fact to price gets us in the door. But I think what the big challenge is in our industry, DJ, when it comes to negotiation, is salespeople just look at that dollar figure for the freight, right?
yeah,
They don't stop and say, okay, if I can't, because, in order to serve you the way you want to be served, you want A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer. I could do that. To do that, it's going to cost you 2 grand. I know people might be doing it for 1,500 bucks or whatever, but where else can we look? And I know it's probably a really bad analogy to rob Peter to pay Paul kind of thing, right? Like,
but
like
but you're
I
right.
look at some of the customers that I've dealt with, and I've been 6, 7% higher, but I've saved them things like close to $2 million on demerge, right? Like, so it's what else in the scope of the business, and this call
Well,
a spade too,
and that and
right?
that's and that's where the negotiation comes in. I mean, you said it, and I kind of put it as, and it's funny that you've now said it a few times. So I had to bring it up. So my little post, I always do a little post after I create the event. Just it says to add activity. So there's my little post underneath, and I put, "Don't drop your rates, change their perception," and
Yes.
that's literally what you're talking about, and what we're talking about with negotiations. It's the perception, like we I mentioned a while ago. Whoever feels they're getting a good deal, it's they think it, and their perception is they got a good deal. They're who gets a good deal. Did they really? They might not have. We have no idea. But it's
Mhm.
that, as long as you can negotiate with who you're trying to make a deal with, and both sides win, and you come to that agreement that both sides feel like they're walking away winning, that's the
Well,
art of
that's everything.
negotiation at its finest. I mean,
Well, and you
that's
know
what
what?
it's supposed to be.
Well, 100%. And here's the thing, right? Like, if we look at it, and Ryan, I like Ryan. Ryan actually, he regained his himself here. I was crushing in 2019, but I was strictly in show free. So we had shows every other month. Yeah, 100%. Hence the reason you were, because you know what? In my opinion, that show freight, if you're an expert in that niche,
Oh yeah.
oh my God, you can make massive cake, because
Oh, absolutely.
shows and exhibits and all this kind of stuff are some
No,
of
stuff
traffic
pulls me.
managers' worst nightmares.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
you have booths that need to be set up. You have all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember going to shows because I've had customers call me and say, we are in, like, everybody just bailed on us. And of course, me, I grab my bag of tools and I'm off to a show.
Ready to
And
go
I
again,
remember,
put
like,
together.
leveling things, and trucks coming in and things being ruined, and I'm looking at it, and it was my customer, because he knew, right? Like, he knew kind of that background of building things and all that I love to do. And he's like, "Can you please help me out?" I'm like, "Okay, let me see what I can do." And I mean, to the point where, like, I'm lugging compressors into the show areas, and I'm looking at the delivery of this show freight, and I'm like, and he's like, "Dan, we got 48 hours. And then we have our biggest customers coming to see our new lineups. And this is what we are going to show our biggest customers." I'm like, "You can't do that.
Oh,
Like, this,
you want to talk
you
about
would
pressure?
destroy your
Yeah,
credibility,
yeah.
right?
You want
Like,
to talk
just,
about pressure? That yeah,
and
that
it's like, and
shows.
I'm watching this manager, the guy that's in charge of it. Like, I swear he's about to have a nervous breakdown, because I couldn't even imagine the pressure on him, right? Like, you get the executives and stuff, and they just kind of show up and they mingle,
Oh
and
yeah,
they
yeah.
have their
Uh-huh.
wine, and they have their party, and but the person that's actually ground level, like, Ryan, 100%, man. In show freight, you niche that out, and I mean, it's coming back. Listen, like, we're already, I mean, I don't know, like, in Ontario, we're in these passport systems, and as much as there's a lot of controversy, things are opening up. Like, you look at, movies are now being released, and so now finally they're starting to release movies, and, like, they're making tons of money. I mean, probably not what they were, but tons of money. So things are slowly getting back to whatever that normal is, right? Ryan says again, he says, "You're right, Dan. These companies that will take losses to get in the door with hoping to win volume, it's so hard to compete on price." And that's key. But here, I guess, is the meat and potatoes of today, right? Here's the training for this week: is negotiation. How do we negotiate when, and here's what I see as the big thing in our industry: is we're all offering the same thing. I saw a post on LinkedIn the other day saying, here's the thing, guys. Like, I think it was Alan Agnew. I don't know if Alan, if you're watching, but if you are, give us a shout out. Alan had said, here's the thing, like, everybody, I think it was Alan, anyways, everybody, like, we're all selling the same thing. We all have the same trucks. We all call the same people. Like, what differentiates us from the next person? And I'll I go back to what makes you different. And not only that, but if you got the blinders on, right? If you're singular focused and you're saying to yourself, okay, it's $1,200 or $1,500, and that's the focus. So my question is, at this point, you know, at what boxes does the customer or prospect tick? Because if the customer prospect ticks all of your boxes for your client profile, right? And again, I think negotiation is has so many different tentacles that we as sales reps need to really understand. If I'm negotiating with somebody where price is their number one thing, and multiple reasons.
Well,
Their boss may
yeah,
want 4 quotes, and if he's found to give people freight that isn't the cheapest, he could lose his
you
job
get
or
in
he can get
trouble.
in
Yeah,
trouble. So he's not going to do it. But at that point, is it not my decision to say, I don't want to deal with you?
yeah, absolutely. That's that's what you got to look for. And what's up, Jagtar? Jagtar, good to see you again. Hey, okay. So he's putting out.
Professional heavy haulage, commercial transportation, hydraulic axles, multi-model trailers, combination Volvo, pullover, oversized transportation.
That's good.
That's a lot. When somebody says, "Hey, what do you do?" That's a lot to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Good for you,
That's
Jagtar. Good for you, buddy.
hey, he definitely. You got to work on those big heavy haul projects. There's lots of them out there.
Oh, there's
Uh,
lots. Yeah, it's good to get.
um,
But you know what? Here's the thing: is there's I believe there's money in every part of the industry,
absolutely.
but money is in direct correlation to how much value you bring. And then God, I know I just said that. I can't believe it. But
Well,
value, right? Everybody
yeah,
talks about value, value, value.
you're
But
right, though. You're right.
but
I mean,
it is, it
that's
is, and
what
I mean,
changes the value that you can bring, the value through your negotiation, and again, it's just following the basis, like Dan gave you guys the basis. You just follow first base and qualify them, then go to second, and eventually. But like Dan just mentioned too, at a time, and that's so I'll throw this in. So part of my, especially my initial intro into this, when I was taught, I guess, all the bad things, that it's just drop your price and get the freight. Um, I took that and I just twisted it to my own way. And again, that's where the negotiation part of it worked for me to land a lot of people. I dropped the price if it made sense that I wasn't getting killed, or I thought I could at least find a truck and maybe
so
break
but
even. But
DJ, let me ask you this though, brother: is that negotiation?
not at all. Well, so the negotiation, no, dropping the price is not the negotiation. The
No.
negotiation skill was after. So I would then, because you guys know those people out there that are strictly on price, you got to find out, is it coming from upper management? Like, are they telling you? But they're not going to say that right away. You're a stranger in a bar that just bought them a drink. Okay, they're not telling you everything. So you gotta buy them the drink and open the conversation. So that's dropping and just opening that line. Once you get that first load, it seems like the conversation completely changes. Now they're hunting you because they don't trust you, and you can see right away the type of trust that they have or don't have. But then also it gives you the time to really figure out. Now I would always, after doing a load that way, if I ever took a load that way, would say, "Hey, let me ask you." And I think somebody brought it up last time, but I would say, "What I all my customers always their decision making is based on three things: price, you know, I can't think of the words, but price this or that." And somebody brought it up exactly the words. And if they said price was first, I knew, but then I knew that already because they were saying that. But then I wanted to find out why. And that's where the negotiation was, trying to figure out, was it them? Are they just trying to drop this or have this low price to look good? Or is it their boss is saying, you need 4 quotes, like you're saying? You need 4 quotes. You need 3 quotes. We can't just give all our freight to these people. You got to take the lowest one. Or is somebody? I mean, I had one client literally said that they have to send. They were so micromanaged they had to send the quotes, and the boss picked the quotes. They were just the one finding the quotes.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, so if you go back to um, context, right? Context. So we either get sold or we sell, right? The old
Yeah,
Grant Cardone would get back
that's
in the day.
it. Sell or be
But
sold.
sell or be sold. But if we think about it, um, I fully believe, and I've sorry, not always. The later part of my career, it was always mixed with before I would even come close to agreeing to drop my price. I had a negotiation with the prospect about what the future held.
Mm.
Now, for all of you that are going to come back and say, "Yeah, but they're lying," they did it. Yeah, sometimes.
And it might,
But
yeah.
here's the thing: is if I always had the conversation, right, and say, "Okay, so you know what, DJ, you need $1,200. My rate is 1,400." That's a significant drop, right? Significant drop.
Mhm.
Um, and like, so my question is, if I can make this work, and if I show you X, Y, and Z, because that's what we talked about, are your core values. Am I correct with that? Yes, you are. Okay.
Absolutely.
So if I show you X, Y, and Z on how many loads before we can sit down and negotiate a fair price, because as you know, DJ, I need to make a profit. Now, I'm not looking to buy a Ferrari next week, but I would like to put food on the table for my family. And you
Yes.
know as well as I do, there's and this is where like all these strategy stacking start coming into play, right? You
Yes.
know as well as I do, there's people there that are trying to buy a Ferrari off you in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
I would rather have you as a client for decades instead of months, and I'd rather understand truly what makes you look good, and I want to find that nucleus and perfect it for you. But I can't do it at $1,200. So for me,
So
that
Dan, what
conversation, go for it.
so what you're telling me is you want not just the money from me to make the initial down payment. You want me to help you make the monthly payments from there on after. That's what
100%.
you
100%. But here's the thing is, and this is kind of the clincher, right? This is the part of the conversation where I, as the sales rep, got a lot of insight.
Mm.
Like, I can't continuously do it for $1,200. The market just won't allow it. If you're getting it for $1,200, by all means, you're getting a great deal.
Oh, yeah.
But if we are still having the conversation, it means something's amiss. So what is it? Is it the way they bill? Is it the way you see how I investigated that and then I jumped into different areas of the company, right?
Exactly.
So, and here's why I say that, and for everybody listening, here's why I go into that. Because if you go talk to your customers right now, I can almost guarantee, yeah, I can almost guarantee 80% of them are pissed off at some part of the supply chain that sucks up their time. Billing, getting PO numbers, like PODs, like all this stuff, because accounting is going to come back to the shipping manager because
Mhm.
everybody's mentalities these days is ain't my job. You're supposed to have your people are supposed to have me. I'm not paying them until, so call them and tell them. And I mean, even to the point where
Oh yeah.
in a lot
I
of
just had
large
the same
companies, as a
situation.
sales
I
rep, you got
literally
to
just had
chase
the
your
situation.
AR.
Yeah.
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 So but having that conversation, and here's the key, DJ, and I know you and I have both been there many times. Having that conversation before, because as a sales rep in my head, and at least me, if not you, then please share. But for myself, I'd always say, in my head, I'll drop it this time, but I'm gonna get that $1,400 next time. And then I just found
Everybody
I was
says,
getting chewed. My margins were getting chewed and chewed and chewed and chewed.
of
And
course.
then it's weird because I'd get pissed off at the customer because I'm not negotiating well. So I get pissed off because
Yeah,
I
you
feel
can.
like I'm being taken advantage of when all he's doing is saying, "Hey, I got a rate of $1,200," and I'm going, "Okay, I'll take it." That freaking asshole gives me shit freight. Da, da, da. Well, I chose to do
You took
that.
it. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
shut
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Look in the mirror and say, "Listen, this is the deal." And I think as sales reps, and I ask salespeople all the time, why is it that we get like so passionate and fearful and anxiety and everything about this no, and it's like, I get turned down multiple times a day to the point where, hey honey, you want pizza? No, I don't want pizza. Okay. Hey, do you want to make a roast? No, I don't want to make a roast. Do you want mashed potatoes or baked? I want baked potatoes. She wants mashed potatoes. Like, and
Totally.
just, and not just with my wife and I, with everything. Hey kid, can
Yeah,
kids, can you do, no, I really don't want to do that. Okay, can you help me with this? I got, like, you think about the amount of times if we quote unquote call it a failure, how in a day we gotta like we fail 6 times before we have a shower. You know what I mean? Like so, but I sit there and I
yes.
say,
No,
you know,
I think
But
that's
why is it so different in business? And it's because it's our friggin' pocketbook. That's all. The only
yes.
thing I can come down to was it's our pocketbook, or it's our ego saying we have to beat this person in order to, for everyone else, for us to feel like we're good. And I don't even know if I said that right because it sounded like that was horrible English. But um,
No,
do you see where I'm getting at,
no,
brother?
I get it exactly. Yeah, I mean it's kind of that's what I was just pulling up my quote from, so I didn't totally jack it up, but I mean it's kind of the quote from Zig Ziglar of I think that's the difference, and that's why Zig and certain people, you hear these successful people. You watch all of these YouTube things like I do, and it and it's funny, but I think the more I'm starting to realize what Zig had to say and what a lot of these other guys are saying, and we all, if we're in a challenging, if we don't have the safety security of this huge bank account or a bunch of money regularly coming in, we're always all worried about, well, what am I getting? What can I get? What am I getting from this?
I've
And
also found. Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, and Zig, says that if you would just help enough other people get what they want, then you'll get what you want. And
I think also negotiation. A big part of a lack of negotiation for us as salespeople comes from having an empty pipeline.
oh yeah,
Because I
the
really
urgency, yeah.
truly believe that, because I can't, like, I recall, and I'm just kind of mentally I'm going through the decades of my career, and like I would drop my pants in a split second when I had nobody else to give me business,
Oh,
and like I
absolutely.
lost a like, so it would be this thing where I'd scale, and I don't know about all y'all listening, but here's the reality of my business when I first started is I'd scale and then I'd plateau. So, I'd get up to, when I first started scaling, I get up to 5, 6 grand a week. And going from $8 an hour to 5, 6 grand a week, I was like, dude, I am making bank. I'm like rolling it. I got my first brand new car. I could go out to bars. I could go drinking. I could have dinner. And then all of a sudden I stopped selling. And I thought I was like the coolest thing since sliced bread. Like my ego just completely absorbed my life.
That's where it all
And
comes crashing down, right there.
well, but and then I mean, no, it lasts a year or whatever, and then I lose a big customer, and then I lose another customer. Why? Because I'm not valuing their business, and I'm sure. So now all of a sudden, it's like, oh my god, you're back down to this draw, and you're like, oh, and you stop sleeping at night, and and then all of a sudden it's commission breath, and you're like doing whatever you need to do to get business. However, and again, I go like it goes right back to this negotiation stuff. It's you get whatever you can to get business, but you now you get 10 loads a week at 5% margin instead of 5 loads a week at 15% margin. So you're doubling your output for what you have to do, meaning your ops output. You're doubling your calls, you're doubling, you're actually like
Just to try to survive.
castrating,
Yeah,
and I can't believe I just said that word, but you're castrating your ability to sell.
yeah,
And it's because you just decided to drop your rate because you had commission breath and you didn't negotiate. So again, and I know I'm trying to hit this point, but damn, just listen, negotiate up front. If somebody wants a
yes.
lower rate, like listen, we all know, DJ, I don't care what you promise a customer. In today's market, if you're $200-300 higher, you're not getting the opportunity, right?
No,
You're just not on a cold basis. Like if it's a lane that you already have a major establishment with the customer and they know, and then that's where
absolutely.
you have the it's funny because then you have the conversation that's actually a negotiation as opposed to this perception of this hostile negotiation at the board table. Like you have a
Yeah,
conversation, you
yeah.
say, okay, DJ, I got a 1500. What are you getting back to the market? Well, I'm getting back 1300. Okay, like I can't do 1300. And this is honest negotiation, my friends, not I'm going to go back to my supplier and see because you're really paying 1100, you just want to make 400 on it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's one of these, okay, let me go back and see like what are the volumes, what are the amenities for the driver, what are the pickup times, what are the delivery times, what kind of windows do we have, what if this, like, and this is where you collect all the information and you facilitate the sale. Because in logistics, that's all we are. We're facilitators, right? We convey information. And when we
Mhm.
don't convey information in a manner that which the customer wants it, that's when we lose, because that's when service failures happen. That's when everything starts snowballing. So it's a matter of, if you're going into it, for all you reps out there that are listening, watching, and you're making cold calls, like, have that conversation up front. This is a reason I'm a big believer in: pick 10 suppliers you love to work with, find out everywhere they ship freight, what the rates they want, and go start selling those lanes. And then
Yes.
go to 15, then go to 20,
Like,
then go to 30. Because I can get on the phone with DJ, and DJ says, I go from here to here, and I go, okay, perfect. I go from there to there. My volume is 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm typically delivering 32 miles away from you at XYZ company at 9 a.m. We've been delivering there for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. We're typically a 45-minute unload. Give me about 15, 20 minutes for paperwork, and then maybe another 10 or 15 to kind of do a circle check. Then I can drive to you. So call it 11 o'clock. I can be there every day. Does that meet your shipping schedule? Well, actually, I needed somebody here at 9:30. Okay, that's not going to work.
it's not
As I
gonna work,
said, my
yeah.
appointment's at 9. It's a 45-minute unload. So, you know, let's continue the conversation, Mr. Prospect, because if it works, I might be able to rearrange delivery. I don't know at this point, but let's have the conversation. So now we're negotiating and we're talking through the thing. Okay. So you get through that process and you're like, okay, now when he gets there, he's typically going to have, 10 hours left on his logbook, 9 hours left on his logbook. So what kind of delivery are you looking for? Well, we're delivering in this time. Okay, that time window meets. You know, our rate for this run is $1,500. Well, I'm getting 1,100. Okay, so right there, I've taken, because I know my suppliers, I trust my suppliers. I'm not going back to my suppliers with, I know you wanted 1,500, but I can do it for 1,000. It's never going to happen, right? So
Yeah.
I know at that point, it's either A, is that negotiation way too far off? Like, A, are they BSing that they're getting at 1,100 because, yeah, or is, like, where do you want to play that? And that's really where the negotiation starts. You're
Mhm.
getting $1,100 for this. Is this a grandfathered rate that you've been in, or is this something like, what are they doing for $1,100? And then you can start investigating that back end function where maybe they are 1,100, but he's not going to tell you, because nobody's going to tell you, I absolutely hate my supplier. I'm getting hosed left, right, and center. But it's like, okay, and you go through the process, and then that's where the negotiation. Now, that's an example where I would probably at that point, um, thank them for their time and move on,
Yeah.
because a $400, like, I still got to eat.
Yeah, good.
I
Not
don't
all
want to
money.
insult my
We
supplier.
we've said it, and we've said it in multiple shows. Not all money's good money, guys.
Hmm.
There's gonna be customers out there. There's gonna be shippers, clients out there that have to be at that for whatever reason. And
Yeah. But
if
now let's use that same example and talk about a 50 or $100 difference.
Mhm.
Okay. So the same example at a 50 or $100 difference. To me, this is where skilled negotiation starts. Okay. So I want 15, you're paying 14 right now. So, Mr. Customer, or Mr. Prospect, or Mrs. Prospect at this time, like, is there any areas that you feel could improve with your present supplier? Is there any areas that, if you, in your ideal world, you'd want better, or a higher value from, or a higher functionality from, or whatever that verbiage is in your individual niche? See, not, okay, well, where are they dropping the ball? Because, again, in my opinion, anyways, and again, comments are a great thing because people can jump in and say, "Dang, you're smoking
You're
dope,"
crazy.
but it's like, to me, when I that verbiage would insult my choice of using that supplier if somebody said that to me, right? Like, I had somebody come back to me. They were trying to get me to join their training for ads, and I told them who I was involved with right now, and they wanted to just become another coach. And where they lost me was the fact that, you know, oh well, we do things way better than XYZ people, and I'm like, okay, even if you do, don't tell me that, because I made the decision to go with them. So you just totally insulted my intelligence, in my opinion. Again, my opinion. So for me, it's we phrase our sentences very carefully, because what I'm trying to do at this point in the negotiation is I'm trying to get them to think of these things, like maybe the additional 3-4 hours a week they spend on chasing pieces of information that they don't want to chase. Maybe, and it's not a, what does your present company suck at? It's a, if you were to close your eyes and picture the ideal situation, what would it look like? And then I ask the question, is there a gap between that and what you're getting right now? And I allow the prospect to come to that conclusion. Not that they made a bad choice, because again, I don't want to insult their intelligence, but to the fact that there's room for movement. And if we identify that movement, Michael Neem is great at it. He talks about it all the time. He goes like, go to accounting, find out what their problems are. Go to this department, find out what their problems are, and find out how it links back to transportation, right? Like, and it's a
Mhm.
great strategy because, you know, call the salespeople. Like, you want to talk about who's the actual boss in the companies. Majority of the time, salespeople are the actual boss. Like, I remember dealing with $1 billion corporation, and I thought my customer, like my main guy, was the boss. But when shit hit the fan, I got a call from the salesperson, that moment in my career, everything changed, because I went, huh. And he's like, listen, when you screw up, my customer calls me. My food on my table gets compromised. So you either shape up or we're ending your relationship. And I went, whoa,
Ah.
hold on. Because I'm sitting there going, whoa, 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 hold on. Like, I'm being told by my customer, okay, perfect, man. I know like shit happens, get it under control, and I trust you. This person above him is ready to guillotine me. And I stopped and I went, who's really in charge? And when you think about it, okay, if we think about the world of logistics, so we as salespeople have operations teams, right? Like, we either have personal operations teams or general ops, right?
Mhm.
If we as a salesperson went to our manager and said, XYZ carrier sucks, I do not want them on my freight, what do you think is going to happen? Regardless of what the relationship is between the ops team and the carrier, the salesperson's going to have the last call, because
Mhm.
the company wants to keep the salespeople happy. Every
Especially
company,
if they're
like,
a good
think about that,
salesperson.
right? But yeah, well, that's it. But think about that org chart, right? Like,
Yeah.
think about it. And as you have the transportation org chart, and it starts with the transportation of VP of logistics. If you have a big enough salesperson in the company that causes enough waves, you as a logistics player will be removed.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
so,
Absolutely.
you know, like, these are things that, to me, as a sales rep, and I guess let's start with the end in mind, right? Ideal client. Somebody that you like. This is not a strategy, I don't believe, anyways. And please, if you think differently, DJ or anyone listening, tell me. You don't do this with just a guy that just says, "Oh, I'll put you on a list." Like, you don't take
No.
the time to go and find people in accounting, or take the time to go and find the salespeople. Like, this is for ideal clients that are big shippers, that have the ideal business, the niche you want, where you could deliver the value.
Yeah, and that's
Then you take the time to go through it. And maybe it takes 5 months to close, but you keep them for a decade. I'd rather take 5 months to close and keep a customer for a decade, walk into the relationship knowing we both feel really good because we've negotiated fairly to make something work, as opposed to, I'm going to drop my price. So, because here's the thing, you drop your price, it's only a matter of time before the supplier that was doing the business realizes they dropped their price. Then, in order
yeah,
for you to keep the business, you got to drop your price, and then it's an insane cycle
it's a
that's
pit.
just going to shatter margins.
Yeah.
And like Ryan said, it's hard to compete on price. You can't, because if you compete on price, so here's the thing: if you compete on price, you're a commodity. You have no right to bitch and complain about anything, because you've made yourself that commodity. Hope that
Uh,
makes sense.
and and you're right. And the points, and just to, I guess, tie it up with what you said. I mean, exactly what you're explaining is I think that's the difference between people realizing that this is a job or this is their career. You
Mhm.
know, these clients that we're working with, these customers we're trying to ship with, again, it's building the value. They're building the value, and you're realizing the value that they bring on. Like Dan said, if you see that there's value, there's a lot of opportunity there, then that's when you're digging in and moving up the chains and doing your work. But if you're just sitting there selling freight and shipping freight, well, then you're just as valuable as anybody else, just shipping freight and moving freight. And you only have one value there. These customers, the reason they'll pay you more, the reason anybody pays more for anything is value, is the
Mhm.
value that's in it. So if you're digging and you're not only helping the shipping manager, who his when you figure it out, his job is only to get the pallets out of the damn warehouse so they can label and make more stuff. Well, you're only helping him by doing that.
Mhm.
Well, what about everybody else? The reason they use us, the reason we have value to begin with, guys, is we're there to make their job easier. If we're not proving that we can make their job easier in all the different avenues and to everybody, then we only have value to that person.
Well,
And
and even to expand on that, okay? So you got a couple of tentacles that every salesperson should be paying attention to. The freight, what is it? What is the need, right? Market value. Okay, so and I'll explain. And the reason I say that is this: is I was recently on a call with a student, and I was helping him expand on some deals and grow his business. And the customer that we were speaking to loved his service so much. He's like, dude, you've been 150 up to $200 higher, and I've given you the freight because the peace of mind it gives me. And I asked the question. I said, so if I'm understanding this correctly, if I mean price obviously we're $500-600 higher. No, I go, but if these new 9 lanes you gave us, totaling 45 loads a day, if we were $100 higher on each, you would spend the extra $4,500 a day. He goes, hands down. Because you got to understand, this is a multi triple digit million client. We do $115 million with this customer a year.
mm,
20 grand a month, $220,000 a year. So the customer's happy and stays with us is worth it. Now,
mm,
think of that perspective. That is an ideal customer for a logistics sales rep who wants to keep somebody for decades, not years. And here's the
mhm,
gold to tie this all back in. He says, even my salespeople said, do it. He said that to us on the phone. So there is companies out there that want the ease. There is companies out there that want the value. They want that new opportunity. They want to be able to sleep at night. They're sick of the challenges. And listen, especially in today's market, like if we look at like all the issues in today's market, and we look at company, I've got customers that every single piece of their business is overseas shipping. Like they do not manufacture a single thing, they bring everything in.
mhm.
Imagine the strain they're
Um,
facing right now. The last thing they want is additional BS because we as logistics reps don't have our shit together. They
mhm.
will pay more, and they're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar company, and they're pissed off beyond all belief because they're just a number. So think about what they would do, right? Their entire business is import from Asia, right? Like their entire business. So you think of,
Jesus.
4 grand a container up to 25 grand a container, back down to 13 grand a container, up to 10. But like, you think of the
Yep.
fluctuations.
Yeah.
They before this situation, it was a okay. If we bring 4,000 containers in, this will typically be our like. You could almost hammer it down because things change very very rarely. Now it's, other customers are like, no, I've stopped bringing freight in. I go, what are you selling? They're like, nothing. Because I'd rather sell nothing and not make any revenue or switch a product line than bring in a container and lose $9,000 every time I bring in a container just to fulfill some orders. So what's going to put me out of business quicker? Not selling anything or losing 9 grand a container at 10 containers a month? I go,
Yeah.
well, yeah, makes sense. So like as sales reps, we really need to think through this and
Mhm.
really have, in other words, like Jeb Blunt said it well in Inked. He said, have that negotiation strategy before you even enter the building, before you even pick up the phone. What
Yes.
is your negotiation strategy? What areas of the business do you feel you should pinpoint? Ryan said he was doing a bunch of different shows. So if you're like, right now would be the time to start calling all these show companies, because things are going to start being booked shortly.
Mhm.
What are some of the challenges you want to avoid? What are some of the obstacles? Because I'll tell you, when shows start, they're going to be lean ass supply chain machines, because they don't want to spend an extra penny anywhere in the supply chain that comes from problems. They
Yeah.
will spend what they need to spend to get it done properly. But when there's a problem, you've got a major issue on your hands. A major issue on your hands, because if you created that problem because you weren't professional, you're going to lose customers left, right, and center. And I know we were way beyond our time today, brother, but
Nah, no
um,
worries. It was a good one.
go for it. Send your
It was
quote. I'm
it
finished.
was
I'm finished ranting.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're good. And this was a good one. Thank you. But so I got a good quote for today, obviously with the negotiation in mind. And this comes from JFK, John F. Kennedy. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate.
Oh, that is like a whole show in itself, because we are
Boom!
so afraid to negotiate.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Boom. Have a good one, everyone.
So, guys.